So in Apex Legends, is the legends in Apex Legends the people you play in the game, or are they just legends in general?
Is this your intro?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're called legends.
So the legends in Apex Legends are the legends that we play as.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Nice.
Is this seriously your intro? Hey everybody, welcome to Multiplayer Vault, brought to you by Baritone Studios. I'm Sky.
And I'm Evan.
And today we're talking about Apex Legends. Alright, so let's get on to the lore of Apex Legends. Prepare for Titanfall. Wait, where are the Titans? Oh man, that's right, we're covering Apex Legends, not Titanfall. Duh. Let's see, there's this event called the Apex Games, and they're held by the Apex Predators, who fought under the patronage of the IMC during the Frontier Wars. I think we should start with some Titanfall, don't you think, Evan?
I think that's a bang good idea, Sky. Let's start with Hammond Robotics, shall we?
I think we shall. In the year 2131... A guy named Heinrich Hammond starts Hammond Robotics on Earth, ushering a new age of automation and human advancement in warfare. They created the Titan and Marvin models of robots we see in the Titanfall games. All's well for Hammond until what can only be called a rich person problem strikes. A branch of Hammond, Hammond Engineering, grows larger than its parent company and rebrands into the Industrial Manufacturing Corporation, or the IMC.
This branch turned mega corporation dominates the core systems, the main systems found around Earth. Fast forward a few decades and the jump drive is invented. That's jump drive with a capital J and a capital D, allowing for fast but very inefficient interstellar travel. Using one's jump drive requires a ton of fuel and a very long time to recharge, but hey, now you're further in space than anyone has ever been, so you win some, you lose some. Of course, the IMC wanted to take advantage of this to make some more cheddar cheese, so they invested heavily in space exploration, becoming the first to discover the frontier, also with a capital F.
What's cool about the frontier is that there are a bunch of Earth-like planets in close proximity to each other, so a network of colonies were founded. They were founded mostly by employees of the IMC, veterans of wars, and just plain old adventurers and explorers. Funny thing about the frontier, it was a pain to supply, and the IMC didn't make much headway in getting their cheddar, so they pretty much abandoned the place for almost a century, leaving everyone living there cut off from the core systems. For that period of time, the planets in the frontier created their own societies and began to be less and less like the humans in the core systems.
Then bada bing, bada boom. There's a major conflict going on in the core systems. Terrorist attacks and governments going trigger happy on the weapons of mass destruction are at an all-time high, and the overpopulation isn't helping at all. In an attempt to salvage the situation, the IMC turned back to the frontier for a solution. Turns out, war isn't profitable when you're one of the participants, so the IMC renewed their claim on the frontier.
Unfortunately for the money-grubbing megacorp with the bad naming convention, there are people living there and have been thriving for nearly 100 years. Surprise! Well, I guess that can't be helped, said the IMC. I guess we'll have to find some other solution for this problem in the core systems. There are people that already live here and have for a long time.
Wait, let me see that. There's no way it says that. See, yeah, no, the IMC really said, well, I guess it can't be helped. I guess the only solution is to murder every last one of these people and suck out their resources until they are dry. End quote.
Sorry.
You should be. Now, where were we? Yeah, so unlike Omnica Corporation and Overwatch, IMC did go all advanced warfare Kevin Spacey style on the frontier, declaring war on every settled planet and settling up extensive strip mining. Two of the main guys of the IMC were Vice Admiral Graves and Executive Officer McAllen. They oversee the entire operation from two different angles. Graves sees it from the military side, what troops go where, what weapons go to who, that sort of thing. McAllen is the business guy. He takes care of the mining sites and their reports.
Well, it turns out McAllen had a soft spot for people fighting for their home, and he mutinied against Graves alongside the crew of the IMC Odyssey, a powerful warship. He and the crew disappeared for a while, likely planning their next move. Meanwhile, the folks living in the frontier aren't too happy with all these city slick and nobodies taking their land and turning it into factories. So they fight back. Resistance forms all over the frontier. Through small victory after small victory, they form the Frontier Militia. Come on, guys. Again with the bad naming conventions. Can we please get something cooler? Something with alliteration like Frontier Force or something that rhymes like the Patricia Militia.
Or some kind of onomatopoeia. That'd be cool. Blam! Pew! Anyway, at one point, the militia intercepts a distress call from some dude named McAllen. He and the crew of the Odyssey were hiding out there, and the IMC thought it was prudent to test out the new Spectre line of robots, hence the distress call. McAllen, after he and his crew were evacuated, agreed to join the militia. For a long time following, all-out war ensues between the Frontier Militia and the Industrial Manufacturing Corporation. Still can't get over how boring those names are.
What else were the IMC supposed to do? They couldn't fight the militia toe-to-toe anymore. They needed an advantage. They found that advantage in a device of unknown origin called the Fold Weapon and its power source called the Arc. This Fold Weapon was capable of planet-level destruction, and all it needed was its power source, the Arc. Unfortunately, the Arc was across the frontier and needed to be hauled through a war zone, so they hired the Apex Predators to facilitate the Arc's transport to the Fold Weapon, and then they could administer their ultimatum on the militia. Heh.
Who are these Apex Predator folks? Well, dear listener, they are a mercenary branch of a crime syndicate called, well, the Syndicate. They make up some of the most feared and formidable fighters on the frontier. At the time, they were led by Cuban Blisk, who rose to the top using his connections in the Syndicate and his very impressive voice, also the name Cuban. Pretty cool. Thankfully, the militia weren't going to take all of this laying down. A pilot by the name of Jack Cooper almost single-handedly thwarted the entirety of the IMC's plans, killing most of the Apex Predators involved in destroying the Arc and the Fold Weapon. The only one spared by Cooper's killing spree was Cuban Blisk, who took a step back for a while and focused on rebuilding the Apex Predators.
Well, hot diggity, it has been about, say 10 minutes, and we are finally getting to the actual game of Apex Legends. It took long enough. The game Apex Legends is basically a representation of the Apex games in the universe. The whole thing is a televised blood sport transmitted across the Outlands, which is like the frontier of the frontier. It's where all the greatest fighters, called legends, compete for fame and fortune. Generally, an Apex Games match would consist of several teams of 3 scrounging the expansive arena for weapons and resources, and then fighting for dominance until one team remained standing.
Who runs this thing? Why, it was our great friends the Syndicate, and the actual games themselves are personally overseen by our old buddy Cuban Blisk, who must have thought that the best way to rebuild the Apex Predators would be to literally thin out the herd. Great guy. Love him. Great guy. Unfortunately, no one actually dies. It's all wacky holograms or fake Nerf guns being used, but it's still really popular for its primal thrills while still being fun for the whole family.
Hey, you watch it after church or something. One would think that this kind of operation would involve all sorts of silly shenanigans, and that one, whoever they are, would be 100% correct. Like most multiplayer games, Apex Legends tells these silly, goofy stories in a seasonal structure, so forewarning, this might get a little tedious. Despite the fact that contestant admissions were soaring, the Apex games were running very smoothly in the year, sometime after the first actual number date we mentioned in the beginning. Could be 100 million years, could be like 50 years, I don't know. Everything changed when bang, zap, pow! A guy named Crypto zipped and zopped the arena in the middle of a match and wildlife started trampling through, chaos ensuing.
The Syndicate canceled the Apex games to clean up this jerk's mess, but they weren't rid of him yet. He hacked into their roster and put himself into the Apex games under an alias. What a guy. Because of the destruction and zoological infestation, the whole deal had to be moved to another arena called World's Edge. The last one filled with animals and stuff is called Kings Canyon, and it'll eventually come back. Following the relocation of the Apex games, the Syndicate struck a deal with Hammond Robotics. Remember these guys? Now that the IMC got blown up or something, Hammond is back in action. They are sponsoring the addition of a new legend called Forge.
This guy is so cool. He's like 6'5", former champion of some other crazy tournament game and super popular with the kids. Perfect choice for a soulless corporation. Also, disclaimer, This guy is a really bad person behind the scenes. Who would have thought? But uh-oh, the guy got his brains blown out by a creepy robot named Revenant in his introductory video. Oh well. But the Syndicate must have thought that was pretty awesome, so they made Revenant a permanent contestant of the Apex games. He was also a murder robot, so putting him in the game would hopefully temper him a little bit, even though it's fake violence.
And hey, Kings Canyon is back. It's all fixed, it's got a cool zoo feel, and it's ready to be shot up by fame-seeking nuts. But aw man, a lady named Loba blew up a significant portion of the arena to get at Revenant. Murder Robot did some murdering one time and killed Loba's parents, so she was out for revenge, destroying a warehouse full of extra Revenant bodies. All we take from this is that Kings Canyon got blown up to Kingdom Come. Poor arena. When will people leave it alone?
No, Kings Canyon!
What's this? Another psycho who wants to kill stuff? Stop the count, said the Syndicate. We gotta get Loba in here. Stat. And just like that, Loba is a contestant in the Apex. You can eat my shorts. Loba is a contestant in the Apex games.
It appears that almost all of the crucial seasonal storytelling are intros to new playable legends in-game. So, dear listener, whenever a new character is mentioned, assume that the Syndicate gobbled them up or they got in some other sneaky way.
Following the decimation of Kings Canyon, Loba and some other legends got together to find these little artifacts. They raced with Revenant and his posse of legends and put together that this is Ash's head. No, not Ash from Rainbow Six Siege, and no, not Ash from Overwatch. This is Ash from Titanfall 2. She was an apex predator that Jack Cooper killed, or not really because she's a robot. Forgot to mention that. I bet the whole time you thought the artifacts got put together to make a gross dismembered head, didn't you?
So what does this have to do with anything? Nothing really. She eventually gets rebuilt and runs with her old partner, Cuban Blisk. It's cool that more and more Titanfall stuff is being introduced in the game, and you bet your biscuit that she'll become a legend. But hey, a new arena is introduced, a place called Olympus, so that's fun. A couple new folks named Rampart and Horizon joined the Apex game too with some fun stuff. A robot charity event is held and a rocket gets launched. That sounds familiar. Screw all that, okay? That's not important. The Syndicate is doing something, okay? Quick everyone, gather around. The Syndicate is doing something other than hiring crazies to fight in their Bloodsport game. This is huge. Before we get to that, speaking of Bloodsport games, it's time for intermission. I say Bloodsport because Evan will probably want to hurt me after I make him decipher my dumb riddles.
Are you going to be asking me some riddles?
They're like Guess Who riddles. They're not hard.
Oh, that's even
I
worse.
made them up in like 5 minutes. Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to Intermission. And today I have a couple Guess Who riddles from my buddy Evan. And now just so you know, Evan, these two riddles are about Apex Legends characters, so don't be too alarmed. You ready to start?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, so here's the first one. I am man's best friend, but I am also man's essence. Birds are cool too, don't forget. Who am I?
Am I allowed to look any of this up?
I fail to see how that would help because I made these up in like 5 minutes.
I mean, just in looking at the characters.
Oh,
it is
you
okay.
don't know the
Oh, no.
you don't know
Okay, well, no. So I know you said birds. Birds are cool. Man's best friend is talking about a dog. Bloodhound.
Yeah, you would be correct. Hey, you got it. Good job. Okay, this one's going to be a little easier. I can't help but go zoom. All I think about is going zoom. God, please help me. I can't stop the zoom. Who am I?
Lightning McQueen.
Close, but no cigar.
Is it is his name Nitro?
Close.
Is it the guy that goes really fast? He's green. The guy that looks like he's from Borderlands.
I'm going to say you didn't get that one because you couldn't even say his name.
I literally described the guy.
But you didn't say his name, and that was the answer that I wrote down. So one out of two. You got a 50%.
Octane.
All right, that's our intermission. Back to the show.
A new kid is in town. And when we say new kid, we mean a new power-hungry organization. They set up shop on a planet called Salvo. The Syndicate meets with them and agrees to enter a representative, Fuse, into the Apex games. This guy's welcoming ceremony was interrupted by a wee bit of trouble when someone hacked into his ship and started blowing up people in the crowd. A woman named Maggie hates this guy and isn't afraid to show it. In the process of a hacked ship shooting missiles into the ceremony and mountains literally exploding, Fuse gets his arm blown off. I'm surprised that's all that happened to him, honestly. Maggie is chased down by a few other legends and ends up disappearing over a cliff. And no, she's not hanging right below the ledge on a tree branch. She just poof, disappeared. Talk about a real cliffhanger.
She would come back at...
She's not there.
Oh my god. Are you done?
She just poof, vanished.
Yeah, okay. Well, she would come back after a season. Meanwhile, Seer and Valkyrie are inducted into the Murderous Manic Maniacs Club and joins the Apex games. And Valkyrie is the daughter of Viper, another Apex predator from Titanfall. So yeah, throwback.
Right. Yes. Valkyrie is a legend now. Let's move on. Also, World's Edge has got some earthquake troubles. Whatever. The Apex games have expanded into a place called Gaia and the planet Storm Point, which is a cluster of islands consistently beset by huge tropical storms. Ash is also back, and another legend inadvertently awakened her human side while implanting some crazy codes in the robot's head. Apparently, Ash used to be a person, and now she joined the Apex games to find out who she truly was. Not sure how joining a murder arena is supposed to help you find yourself, but to each their own.
In other news, the Syndicate has caught Maggie, the mountain-exploding woman, and sentenced her to be a member of the Crazies cohort and play in the Apex games until she dies. They probably turned off her hologram safety protocols, am I right, Star Trek fans? That one was for you, Dad. Speaking of the Syndicate, they have a new head honcho. His name's Eduardo, and he's the grandpa of a contestant in the Apex games, Octane.
Nitro.
Whatever. He replaced the Syndicate Council to be the sole leader of the organization, and he expanded the organization into the Frontier itself, not just influencing it, but actually becoming an active participant in the Frontier's day-to-day happenings.
Okay, rewind. There's this legend named Bangalore who's been around since day one. She loses her brother Jackson later in the game story and has a rough time sorting out all her grief, preparing to leave the Apex games for good. If you ask me though, that's a pretty healthy decision. But then she meets this guy named Newcastle in her supposed last Apex games match on Storm Point. He's a RoboCop-looking fellow with a cool beard. They're put on a team together. The match goes on fairly normally, but a kaiju crab rises out of the surrounding ocean and crashes through the arena's barriers, wreaking havoc.
Newcastle and Bangalore and a bunch of other legends battle the stupendous shellfish, and they are eventually victorious. But Bangalore is curious who this Newcastle guy is, and she takes off his helmet, revealing him to be her assumed dead brother. Oh my god.
No
way. Oh my god. It's actually her brother. Can you believe it? That's awesome. Glad we can end on such a good note. So that brings an end to Apex Legends. For now anyways. Actually, I think the story has progressed even more than what we discussed today. But what we have retold has been the story of Apex Legends up until the summer of 2022. So sorry if this is a little outdated, but we tried. Hey everybody. Editor Sky in March of 2023 without the nasally sickness voice you've been subjected to the entire episode. The story of Apex Legends has in fact progressed further since the summer of 2022. A number of new legends have been added, including a scary goop woman, and the storyline has gone hog wild. If you would like to learn more, there will likely be either an up-to-date wiki article or YouTube video link in this episode's description. If not, feel free to surf the internet. Either way, sorry for the lack of topical information. Back to the episode.
I don't care.
Thanks, Evan. So without further ado, time for the Critics Review by Multiplayer Vault's resident, now social media manager, and game critic, Francis. In Apex Legends, the legends participate in the games for many reasons, but the main one is money. They do their job not only because they bring in a paycheck, but because they love doing it, which is an outlook we should take into our lives. Don't work because you have to, work because you want to. If that means finding new work, maybe think about taking that chance. Would you rather live in misery for the rest of your life, or find employment in a place you genuinely love? You always come first. Never forget that. Thanks, Francis. We appreciate your wise words.
Didn't Francis just get a job as a dishwasher or something?
No, I think I quit that.
Oh. We should check up on Francis.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Francis in 6 months. Oh my god. That's not true. I talk to Francis every day.
Great words to live by, everyone. So thank you all for joining us in this Apex Legends episode of Multiplayer Vault. Research for this episode was done by John Ekstrom and Francis. Audio direction was done by yours truly, Evan Barr. If you enjoy the podcast or like to heavily criticize us, feel free to reach out. You can find us on our socials down below, or just look up Baritone Studios, with bear spelled like a bear, on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, the weird dinosaur things in Apex Legends that kind of look like the long neck dinosaurs or whatever. Also, make sure to give us a review on whatever your listening platform is. Not only will it help us reach other potential listeners, but it also will let us know you enjoy our content and would like to see more.
Once again, thank you all for tuning into our episode. I'm Sky.
And I'm Evan.
And this is Multiplayer Vault. And